Anyways, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. This is amazing. I'm really happy. Welcome, everyone. So I've put together basically three CEOs. They're the best in their industries. I've worked personally with every single one of them, and they've been awesome, and we're getting great reviews from every single one of them. So one of the first one, it's Matt from Northwood Roofing. I'll introduce him in a minute. There's also Preston from Your Guy Plumbing or Your Guy Drainage, I should say, and Marcelo of Oral Projects. He's a master electrician. I'll just tell you a little tiny bit about us in case you guys didn't know about us. So this is not a very pretty slide right there, but it's not everybody, but it's most of everybody from our team. We have 7 inspectors, some admin staff as well to take care of all the bookings and all that. And as of yesterday, I'm super proud to say that we're the highest rated home inspection company on Google in Canada with almost 2,400 5-star reviews. I've been waiting a long time for this. We've been working very hard. We had to make a lot of people happy to get this done. And then so that's basically it. It is done now. And we will be #1 in Canada for the rest of eternity. So that's amazing. I'm very happy with this. And that's what we work for. We work for reviews. Once we're done with the inspections, we want to make sure the client and the agents, if possible, gives us a review. So without further waiting here, let me introduce you to Matt of Northwood Roofing. They've been around for about 20 years. They have about 167 amazing Google reviews. Now, if you go on Google and you look for roofing companies, it's hard to find roofing companies with all great reviews, and Northwood is pretty much one of the only one out there. Matt, how about you take maybe 2 minutes and you tell us a little bit about yourself and how it all started?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so Northwood Roofing started about 20 years ago. I was about 20 years old at the time. What we did was cedar shake repair and restorations. We did that for, I don't know, a few years, and then we noticed a bunch of these cedar shake roofs were needing replacement. So we started replacing the roofs, and that's when we started up Northwood Roofing. Yeah, since then we've been getting lots of different contracts. We do flat roofing now, metal roofing, commercial jobs, residentials, inspections, gutters, soffits, basically anything from your gutters and soffit up, we do. Skylights, attic upgrades. So there'll be, so when Canada Inspection comes in and they say, oh yeah, you got mold in your attic or your pipes aren't connected properly, that's when we would come in and do all the attic upgrades and take a look at the roof, do the maintenance on the roof, and then be on your way.
Are we doing questions at the end, or are we doing questions as we go?
David, I can't hear you. I don't know if you're.
Yeah, I think David's audio is off. You guys can hear me though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you guys can ask questions as we go. That's I like it.
So why would you get a flat roof? What's the benefits to a flat roof as opposed to like a pitched roof that you normally have seen all these years?
Oh, I mean, flat roof is basically design. So a lot of the new constructions, when they're doing some of these modern homes in, say, South Surrey, White Rock, the West End, places that have height restrictions that want to maximize their building, then they have to get a flat roof. Flat roofs, though, are pretty durable. I would say the 3 different types of flat roofs that you have would be torch-on, EPDM, and TPO. So the main roof that we install would be the torch-on roofing system. So it would be first layer is the base sheet, and then the cap sheet goes down. Quite durable. After 15 years, what you can do is you can do what's called a prime and cap, where you just spray primer on it and then do another cap sheet over top. Then you don't have to replace the old existing roof, rip it all off, and then put the new one on. So you can save quite a few dollars that way. The other option that you can do for a torch-on roofing system is called just a coatings. where you prime it all and then add a coatings to it. So those are the two options for that. EPDM roofing and TPO, they're typically done on more commercial spaces where you have that sort of bicycle tire material. It's EPDM, and you just roll that on the roof, and then you put the rocks over top of it.
Mm.
But yeah, by far my favorite would be the torch-on roofing system. When it comes to the sloped roofing, I would say the most durable on the market would be the metal roofing system. And there's 3 different gauges that you can get. It goes reverse of what you think. Yeah, there's a couple pictures of flat roofs, metal roofs. There we go. So yeah, that roof that you see right there is a standing seam metal roof. Yeah, as you can see, it's there's 2 different widths that you can get in that type of panel. One would be a 12-inch wide, and the other one would be a 16-inch wide. And then the thicknesses would be 24 gauge, 26 gauge, or 30 gauge. 24 would be the thicker of the 2. And then on more commercial spaces, you can get as thick as 22 gauge. But that's going to be your most durable roofing system. The only negative drawback, I would say, with the metal roofing is snow. And the snow will slide off the roof and rip off the gutters. So in certain areas, what we would do would be installing snow guards. David, can you go back a couple slides back to those asphalt roofing ones? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's your typical asphalt roof. Most homeowners will have this style of roofing system. So when it comes to these roofs, I would say 0 to 10 years, they're very maintenance free. After 10 to 15 years, what they'll do is they'll get a little bit of moss on it. What we do is we'll come up on the roof and do a light brush of all the moss that's on the roof. And then we'll spray what's called the roof wash on it, which kills the moss. It's about 70 to 80% effective first treatment. And then second treatment, I would say, would be 90% effective.
Now, Cindy, I think your question was that, why use a flat roof, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because a flat roof, the only reason you would go with a torch on is it has to be on a flat roof. You can't use an asphalt shingle on a flat roof or a low pitch application kind of roof. So that's why you really only see this on flat roof. Otherwise, if it's going to have a good pitch on it, you will have to go with an asphalt shingles or a metal roof. Now, Matt, you were mentioning about these metal roofs. Some of the downside that I see to it, which is not really a downside, but is that they cost at least twice as much as any other roofs out there. But the good part is that I'm under the impression that they have a lifetime warranty on them as well. Am I right on this?
Yeah. Also, with a metal roof, after say 20, 30 years, if you're starting to get a little bit of, if you're trying to do a refurbish on it, what you can do is you can do a roof clean, and then you can basically put on a coating system or a really heavy duty paint on that roof.
Okay. So Cindy, I think you have another question. Just jump right in and just ask your question.
Okay, well, I just didn't want to go over anybody. I just remember, and I don't know if it's changed now if you're using a different metal, but I remember when they first came out, a friend of mine had them, and you could hear every bit of the rain when it came down inside. Like, it was very loud. Is that still true with those metal roofs or no?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, the roofs that we put on, maybe the older roofs was called like a DuraCloud system. And those fasteners, it would be like a 3-foot panel that would go down, and there would be lots of air between the roof panels and the actual roof deck. So you might get a little bit of bouncing of the rain coming off that. Nowadays, it's called a Pro-Lock panel. And all of our roofs, we put down full peel and stick. So what you have is you have plywood sheathing, that's your roof deck. Then you have a full peel and stick membrane over top of that. And then you have the roof panels, which lay pretty flat on top of that peel and stick membrane? It's a very good question, actually, because I've heard that from a lot of customers in the past. But I've installed hundreds of these Prolock panels, and they're not noisy at all.
And then, Matt, if I jump in, like I know it's the concern with a lot of our clients. They often say the exact same thing. Oh, I heard it's noisy. And I've had a lot of clients who got it installed and they say it's completely the opposite. It's not noisy whatsoever. But if somehow it would be a problem, they can always insulate the under part of it, either throw a spray foam on it or just put some foam panels. And that apparently that will also kill whatever remaining noise that it may do. So I don't think there's anything negative whatsoever about a metal roof. It's just that it's more expensive but for the people that think long run, it's definitely the roof of choice. They're easy to inspect, easy to walk on. They're just great. They're just great.
Yeah, a
Now,
lot of the new construction houses that we do will have asphalt shingle on the main portion of the house, because that's the most economic. I would say in terms of cost point, it's about $5 to $7 a square foot. And then they'll do some metal roofing on, say, the lower skirts of the roof, just for those little accents. I mean, my house right now has it. We got asphalt on the top and metal roof on the garage. And then any sort of decks that are on the back sides of the house, any flat roofing areas, those are typically done in 2-ply torch on, what's called.
which is also like a flat roof almost, right? It's a low pitch.
Yeah, and sloped roofs, the asphalt shingles are considered water shedding, and those are good from 212 pitch to basically vertical. So if you guys don't know what the roof pitch is basically a 212. Yeah, you can keep it on that one. I'll talk about that in a second. 212 is 2 inches up and 12 inches over. Most roofs that you would see out there would be like a 612, so 6 inches up and 12 inches over. Those pictures in the slide there are what's called an old organic style asphalt shingle roof. Those ones are 3-tab. The new ones that you saw in the pictures before, those are fiberglass laminate. So these ones right here, they're kind of phasing out because they haven't made them in probably 15, 20 years now. But that's basically what you would see on an old asphalt shingle roof. On the top right-hand photo, there's a picture of a downpipe coming down the roof where you can see a lot of wear and tear. What we would typically do in that area would be installing what's called a rainwater leader. And what that would basically do is take all the water from that downpipe and run it down into the gutter below.
We see builders doing this all the time, and we always recommend to extend those downspouts all the way down to the gutters. Because from what I'm told, since you're getting early wear and tear in these areas, the shingle manufacturers may not offer warranty on these roofs if you're doing this. And then builders say, well, we've always been doing it that way. And obviously, they've just been doing a crappy job from day one. But we see so much deterioration on these downspout there. One other thing I was going to show here is how some of those shingles are designed. So the bottom layer is basically an asphalt coating. There's a little bit of a mat in between, another asphalt coating, and on top is a granular, basically, layer that is there to protect it from the UV ray. So if we look at the other one right here, when you're looking at an asphalt shingle roof and you start seeing the shingles and you see that the granular part is gone, that's what it tells you that this roof is ready to go. You will notice that very often, though, it'll be more on one side of the house than the other. So, but you don't ever replace just half a roof. You replace the whole thing at once. That's how you can tell. If a roof is getting old, the granular part is getting thinner, or you start seeing the membrane, and then the UV rays will kill it from there. And also it starts taking on a little bit of moisture, and the plywood on the other side starts getting moldy. So it's good to always be proactive with roofs and, and do the maintenance on it. Because like I was going to show to Matt here, a lot of roofs, they start getting mussy and all that, and this will deteriorate a roof a lot faster. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, that's a great photo to stay on for a couple minutes. Couple things I see right there. Photo on the left, what you should have, you have siding and then you have roof. Now, where the siding meets the roof, you should have one step flashing for every shingle going up the roof. So this is kind of back east style what they would do. And what they did is they
This
just
is
did the
brutal.
siding goes up to the roof, or it could be like an old roof that they just remodeled to retrofit with the building. But where that connection is, that would be my biggest concern. And I
Oh, for
would
sure.
have
Plus,
flashing behind that siding.
and there should be a couple inches between the roof and the siding. Otherwise, it's gonna rot right away right there too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so a roof like this, what we would do is we'd come in and we'd brush off all that moss, get all the moss brushed off, and then we would apply a roof wash over top of that to get rid of
And
all
then
the
so it
moss.
slows down the growth after that. Is that how it is?
Yeah, yeah, basically just kills the roots that are growing into the shingles.
Mm, okay. And I guess this will always include a gutter cleanup because I'm guessing all this stuff ends up right in the gutter.
Yeah, yeah, we do a roof and gutter wash. And like I said, for the first 10 years of an asphalt roof, you would have very little maintenance. But yeah, there's a great picture there too to talk about. What you see there is a lot of debris on the roof. So what will happen there is it just sort of accumulates, and then what will happen is all that debris will start growing roots. Those roots will grow into the shingles. And then the other negative part about that is the water will get trapped in the debris, and then it can track sideways. Once it tracks sideways, then you have a potential for a leak.
And it deteriorates the roof a lot faster. So if for people that have trees around their house, they may have to get this cleaned up even twice a year, and it's important to get it done, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I would just
Now,
take a leaf blower, blow it all off. This is
yeah,
another great
exactly.
one to talk about, concrete tiles. So concrete tiles, there used to be a manufacturer in Surrey called Columbia Tiles. They've gone out of business probably about 10 years ago. So any tile roofs that you see right now, like say a customer calls us up, they say, hey, we have a tile roof, we need it repaired or replaced, we want new tile. Not going to happen. Sometimes I can go on Facebook Marketplace and find that same style of tile, but if the customer doesn't have a bundle or two sitting in their backyard, most likely what we'll have to do is take tiles from the back portion of the house, maybe put metal on it or a different type of roofing system, and then use that to repair the front side.
That's a pretty big deal when you look at it, right? Like, so that's why very often I see they put a membrane or they do something quite ugly on these roofs, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
but I mean, in
same
terms
thing.
of tile roofs, they do last quite a long time. Like I've seen roofs out there that are 40 years old.
No, for sure. They can last a lot even longer than that, but there's still like the skylights on it. There's the plumbing stacks. There's like all the sealants that they have at every peak. I mean, they need a tons of maintenance. And I find that these roofs are a lot more prone to pest activity. When you go in an attic like this and you shut your flashlight off, you see daylight coming from everywhere. So if there's a tree touching that house, the rats will jump in that attic right away.
Yeah,
Um, Now, these torch on, we talked a little bit about it earlier, mostly for flat roofs or low pitch, and stratas, basically buildings with flat roofs. They're normally good for about 20 years, uh, right? And
yeah.
so, and they're not overly expensive and pretty easy to install. It's a pretty fast jobs, right? So they're great material, but they're really just there for um, the flat roofs. We've talked already a little bit about metal. I love them. They're great. I mean, if somebody's got some money, definitely best to go for it. Now, cedar shingles, I don't feel that this is something that's been installed nowadays. I mean, we can't walk on these roofs. In the winter, they're so slippery, and in the summer, they crack under our feet. They can last a long time, but it seems very, maintenance intensive.
Yeah, I mean they look very beautiful when they first go down. There's certain areas where there's mandatory cedar roofs that they're still asking. For instance, Morgan Creek, they have a covenant in the neighborhood that says cedar roofs only. So those people who bought houses there, roofs are coming up to 25 years old, 30 years old. They've been repairing them for years and years. They have to go back to cedar. Even if they said, no, we want to upgrade our roof and do a metal roof because it's going to be nicer. No, you have to go back to a cedar roof. Sometimes they'll allow what's called a synthetic product. That'll be on the next one, but
Yeah, like this
yeah.
one here.
Yeah, so there's a couple products out there. I think the product on the top left could look like EnviroShake. The one that's in the
They come
middle,
in
that looks
panels.
like Da Vinci Slate. There's a couple different manufacturers, and then
Yeah.
maybe the one on the right looks like True Slate.
And it's mostly a plastic, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, there's different composites. Yeah.
and what do you think about them? Because they also come with a lifetime warranty or something like that, no?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the cedar one, cedars, you're looking raw material is about $10 a square foot, I would say, just for the field. This product here, you're probably going to be looking at $6 to $7 just for the material. That doesn't include the fasteners, the underlayment, the ridge caps, this, that, but the synthetics will have a much longer lifespan and less maintenance than the cedar roofs.
Mm. And then I wanted to finalize this, with the fact that, a roof might be in great shape. People don't see any leaks or anything like this, but there's tons of stuff on that roof that needs annual maintenance, especially on a roof that's over 10 years old, like Matt said. The skylight's there. It's not a matter of, it's a guaranteed fact that eventually they will leak. The top part there, it's a plumbing boot that is starting to deteriorate. What I see very often is people replacing their roof and not replacing the boots. I mean, it's just the perfect time to do it at that time because then, they're not going to make it another 25 years. And then gutters that are leaking doesn't sound like much of a big deal, but that's how water gets in people's basement. And somehow, sometimes this water rolls around the gutters and seems to find its way inside the home. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but we've seen leakage as a result of that. So if you got big trees around your house, you got to clean your gutters. And if they're leaking, it's an easy fix. You wait on a nice day, you throw some sealant in the inside there, or you call Matt and his crew will go and get that done for you guys. And then chimneys, I mean, who's burning wood in their fireplace nowadays? Nobody. They just basically seal them up. And they tend to try to forget about these chimneys, but they're a massive piece of concrete up there that is deteriorating and does need maintenance. And I don't think it's overly cheap to get those maintained. So if you're going to replace your roof eventually, just chop them off, cancel them, and forget about it. Do you have any takes on that, Matt?
Yeah, no, with those photos there, I would say one way to do more maintenance free is put a leaf guard on your gutters. Product that I would recommend would be Alurex is the manufacturer, and you can put that on a new gutter or you can retrofit it on your existing aluminum. Picture on the left that just shows a little neoprene boot that goes around your plumbing stacks. Over time, those get deteriorated, so we always replace them. Skylights, the skylight units themselves are typically okay for 20 plus years, but what we see is the back pan or the flashing at the top. What will happen there is the water will run around it and leak in through the top corners. So what we do there is we make sure there's a bead of caulking and we will cut the flashing to make a capillary cut to pull the water away so that it doesn't run back. With that chimney up at the top, I mean, a lot of times we'll just rip them out if they're deactivated, or what we'll do is we'll repoint them and basically just grind out all that stuff and then install new grout in those areas. That picture there, I would probably just take it out though.
Especially if they're not using it or they just want to throw a gas fireplace in there, right?
Oh yeah,
So
gas fireplace inserts.
does anybody in the group here have any questions for Matt? We will have a question and answer at the end there, but otherwise we'll be jumping straight to Preston here.
I just want to know, are we getting copies of this? Are you sending this
Well,
to us?
I am recording it. If you wanted a copy, I can probably make that available to you.
Okay, good, because this is a lot of information to be writing down. I'm not staying up with it.
Yeah, no, but keep in mind though that if you have any questions at any time, we personally want to be your personal consultant. So we're just a text away. If you have any roofing questions or anything like this, I'm sure Matt can help you out. If your client's asking you a question you're not sure about or anything like this, Matt can give rough estimate to replace roofs without having to visit it within the same day in many cases. So if your client's looking at a house and you're like, you know, it looks like the roof's pretty old, or the inspector's like, hey, this roof is past, and you want to renegotiate or you want to know what you're looking at, Matt can get you. Can you tell a little bit about that, Matt?
Yeah, so the process is really easy. So say you're a realtor looking at buying or selling a house, uh, customer doesn't know what the roof's looking like. You could just literally send me a picture of the outside of the house and say, hey, I have no idea what to tell my customer on this house. What I can do from there is, I mean, the easiest way would be just to see that picture, see what type of roof it is, and then I kind of know what the life expectancy would be at that point. From there, if I was like, you know what, maybe that roof does need a replacement, I'm going to give you a really quick budget cost. I can go on Google Earth, do a footprint of the house, call it 2,400 square feet, multiply that by the factor of an asphalt shingle roof, might be $8 a square feet, and boom, there's your number, 24,000 bucks for the roof replacement. Now, when the homeowner looks at that, he might be like, oh, that roof's a $40,000 roof, or you have no idea what that roof's cost is going to be. What I would do is just send me a text with that address and say, hey, we have no idea what this is. My service tech, Mike, will come out, he'll take pictures of it, and then he'll give you a free roof assessment. And you can use that in your back pocket for negotiation down the road. At least you have that knowledge. Yeah, you don't need to be an expert yourself. You just need to literally have that guy in your back pocket that you can say, hey, I have no idea about this. Let's call Matt and he'll answer my questions for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I do have 20 years of roofing experience. I do have my architecture, building engineering. So yeah, there's quite a bit of knowledge in the construction industry behind what I have to say.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Anybody have any other questions, or we can come back at the end as well? All right, so let's just jump right here with Preston. Uh, you know, Preston started as mostly doing just some plumbing. We've recommended him many times to our clients, always very happy clients. And then at some point, he decided to specialize a little bit more into drainage and main water line replacement. We're putting together a course right now, Preston and I, about what's involved in replacing a water line from the street to the house. Because a lot of house, they either replace their poly B already, but the line from the street to the house, in many cases, it's still poly B. So we've already done all the filming and all that. Well, I'm excited to put that out there eventually soon. But Preston, how about you tell us a little tiny bit about yourself and what's happening out there?
For sure. Yeah. So thanks for coming out, guys. And yeah, my name's Preston. I'm the owner of Your Guy Drainage. So yeah, we've been in business for about 4 years. I'm a plumber by trade. But I recently made the decision to niche down my business and focus on a specific market in the plumbing industry. So we do mostly all drainage. That includes sewer line replacements, sewer repairs, drain tile replacements, which are the systems in your house that protect us from those atmospheric rivers. So if we ever hear people flooding, that's because they probably don't have a maintained drain tile system. So we do those systems, and then we just tackle all the pesky plug drains. So whether it's hair going down a shower, grease going down a kitchen sink, sewage debris going down a sewer line, whatever it is, we tackle any type of drain, whether it's residential, commercial, any type of building. So that's our main service. But one thing that we're really trying to focus on, which is the reason why we niche down in this plumbing industry, is we're trying to get more into the trenchless market, which is our ability to replace water lines without having to dig up your yard. So anytime your water line breaks, which it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it can be a nightmare to deal with, because this requires excavating your yard, excavating your driveway, landscaping, cutting drywall, all that kind of stuff, which can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So we have specialized equipment that allows us to replace water lines without having to dig up your yard, which can save a lot on labor, concrete, drywall, landscaping, redoing your yard, all that kind of stuff. So we do plan on getting into the sewer side, but that equipment's a lot more expensive. So we're kind of saving up for that, but that's kind of why we niche down, because we want to be specialists at what we do. And we want to be able to provide solutions that no other contractors can. So that's kind of where we're heading. And yeah, so if you have anything related to, I'm a plumber by trade, so if you have general plumbing questions, I can answer it, but we're a drainage focused business.
Yeah, so like this picture that I'm just showing right here, we can see under these sinks, whenever you open a sink, bathroom, kitchen, you'll see a trap at the bottom. It's called a P trap because if you turn it around, it looks like the letter P. And the whole idea with the P trap, a lot of people think that if you drop something so you can catch it from there, but really the whole intent is when we look at this other picture here, is that water stays in there and it prevents the sewer gas from coming back through your sink. So, but as a result though, especially in the kitchen, this is the dirtiest drain out there. Every time you throw your plate stuff in there and you jump, very often it gets stuck in there and eventually it jams up. And then sometimes it can jam up way further in. And that's why you would call Preston. He's got the equipment and then he would just clean that all up.
Yeah.
So that's one of the problems, especially throwing grease in there that will kind of jam up when it cools down, right? But I wanted to show you guys a little bit too. You know, when we look at a house and you look at this house there, when you flush a toilet or you drain your sinks or you let your bathtub go, all this dirty water goes in the sanitary line. And then this sanitary goes to the street into a main line and it gets treated by the city. So this is the one that Preston cleans as well because it gets dirty. People throw some baby wipes in there and it jams up the whole system. I'm sure you find all kinds of interesting stuff in there, Preston.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, sewer lines, you know, they can have all sorts of issues. I mean, you normally won't start having sewer issues unless your house is 30, 40, 50 years old, unless it was improperly installed during the new construction phase. But yeah, it could be grease, it could be just non-flushable items. But a lot of times, especially in Vancouver, with all the trees that we have, you can, those tree roots will find their way into your sewer system in between the joints, and it's food for the tree, right? So that sewer system is basically feeding that tree, so it wants to burrow its roots into that sewer line, and then that's what plugs up your drainage systems. And so that's a very common issue, is tree roots growing in.
Also, those cast iron drains, do you find that they do rust from the inside? They get smaller eventually, they're all rusted out and they collapse, or?
Yeah, they get very scaly. So you can see that bottom left photo is a perfect example. That one's pretty bad, but they do get like that. They get very scaly, so it makes it easy for material to just snag on the scaliness of that cast iron. So yeah, they do rust out, especially once they get pretty old. So that's, yeah.
So, wouldn't you say that right now, any houses that is still using cast iron should consider replacing this material?
Yeah, well, yeah, cast iron isn't commonly used. It's it was back in the day. So if you have cast iron, it's probably around that 50-year, 40-year age mark. So just in general, if you do have a house with cast iron, it's probably getting to that end of lifespan. So yeah, if anyone's purchasing a house or has a house, at least get it inspected. There are tools, descaling tools that you can send in that kind of chop up that scaliness and all that rust. And we have those tools, but it just depends how thin the wall is getting on that, on the pipe itself too, right? The cast iron can really thin out, especially at the bottom where the water flows through. And then you don't even have a pipe anymore. It's basically just the dirt that's flowing through the dirt at that point.
So, and also, I mean, you can't do a trenchless on that. I suppose you do have to dig out for it.
No, so you can do both methods. So there's two methods for trenchless when it comes to sewer. So you can do pipe lining. I think pipe lining is the better one for something like this. You would go in, you descale the cast iron with a descaling machine, clean it out, flush it out, and then you can send a fiberglass liner through and reline the sewer line, and that way you're not looking at digging up anything. And those liners are supposed to last up to 50 years. So that's something we want.
Years.
We're not doing that right now, but that is something that the industry has, and it saves a lot of destruction. As long as the pipe itself isn't shifted or has a belly, then you can reuse the existing pipe as a hose for the new one. So.
Oh, and 50 years. So this liner, how thick is this? It's like a 1/4 inch thick or what?
Yeah, it's pretty thick. Yeah, I've talked to some of the manufacturers. I've seen it, and it's really solid. Yeah.
Yeah. So something that Preston doesn't specialize in right now, he is a plumber, but he doesn't really do any supply lines, the water lines that goes to your sinks and all that. But we'll talk a little bit about it. Basically, most of these water lines are coming from your main water line that is somewhere during the basement crawl space, and then it goes throughout your entire home. So you have one for the cold and one for the hot. Now, what's important to talk about, and I do have a sample right here, is that it's polybutylene. Polybutylene, everybody's heard about it. You know, the insurance company kind of hate it. And, you know, when I started as a home inspector, all we were really saying in the report is that this was an insurance issue. We didn't really see it leaking, you know, compared to copper. Copper tends to leak a lot more than that because there's also a lot more copper out there as well. But right now, polybutylene, they took it off the market in 1996 with action lawsuit and all that. In 1996, which is roughly almost 30 years ago, they basically said this material is garbage. You got to take it off the market. And now we have thousands and thousands of homes out there that is still using this type of plumbing. And so it's way past its life expectancy. It's getting harder and harder to insure. So if you're going to a showing or you look under the sink, you go in the utility room, you notice any of this gray type of plumbing, and especially if it has plastic fitting like this will be a little bit worse. You have to let your client know to dispose of it. When you were in the plumbing, you did do some replacement of poly. Um, this stuff, did you find that it was breaking? Was it like, what was the?
Yeah, I mean, just even not even in my own business, when I worked for other companies, anytime I got sent out and dispatched to a leak, it's 80-90% of the time it's poly B. And we do a lot of water lines. Like I said, we do a lot of trenchless water lines, and I would say about 80% of them are poly B as well. The other 20% being old copper or just a polyethylene line. But yeah, poly B is just it's a disaster pipe. Everyone's dealing with it right now, and it's definitely worth picking up on early if you're purchasing a house, or even if you just own a house, because I've seen people who have done renovations and then they find out they have poly B, and then now they're chopping up their brand new renovation, cutting the drywall, redoing the paint. And so it's definitely worth being aware of, because you're going to get bothered by insurance. Your premiums are going to go up, or you might not even get insured. And then obviously just the disaster of dealing with water damage.
So in an average situation, if you have a line that's going to the streets to your home and you're doing a trenchless on that, what's the average price? I know their situation will be way higher or way less, but on average, roughly.
Yeah, so yeah, I would say average home that we do is going to be anywhere from 35 to 5,500. There's going to be a lot of variables in this, which is going to be the depth of the water line at the city connection, which is where we have to do a little bit of digging. And that's one of the biggest ones. It's a lot different digging a 2-foot hole versus a 6-foot hole. And then from that, it's going to be, are we cutting concrete? Because we still have to dig at least one hole, and that sometimes will be on the driveway. We just don't have to do a trench. So is there concrete? What's the depth? How far is it? It can be a struggle to push our cable through, to get our equipment through the old line. And if it's very far, I know, David, you went to one with us and kind of seen that process. So there's a few variables. Those are kind of the main ones. And so, but on average, if you take an average home with maybe like a 30-50 foot run water line from outside to inside, not too much concrete, it's going to be 35 to 5,500. So,
well, it's pretty affordable. At least now you get a brand new line. You don't have to worry about it and all that, right?
the biggest,
So
yeah, the biggest where the trenchless really helps is when you have mechanical rooms that are in the middle of your house. So people will build those mechanical rooms in the middle of their house. They'll bring their water main in the middle of the house, and if you have to replace that water main, if you do it traditionally, you have to dig a trench through your yard, and then now you have to somehow bring that water line from the outside of your house into your house and run it back into the mechanical room, which is in the middle of your house. So this always requires cutting the ceiling, opening up drywall. And so you're not only paying for the labor to dig up your yard, bring it in, you're paying for the cutting of the drywall, and then you're paying for the repair of the drywall. And so that's where it really saves a lot.
So in reality, replacing the line is not the expensive part of it. Is really just to set it up so you can replace it and doing all the work around it.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So yeah, and then copper out there, maybe tell me what you think about it, but I find that most copper out there is getting close to 40 years. It's getting old. I'll just show you a little bit of a picture here. This is PEX. It comes in clear, white, blue, red. Comes in all kinds of different color. Uh, Preston, I've been telling everybody out there that basically, if this is not what you have in your house right there, likely what you have has already passed its life expectancy.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, so yeah, obviously we talked about Poly B, which Poly B is not a super old pipe, about that 30-year range, but it's at its end of life. It's been at its end of life 20 years ago when it started
20
having.
years ago? Yeah.
So yeah, Poly B, PEX has been around. I think they started using PEX in Canada in the early 2000s. So
Yeah.
it still has to prove itself, but I think it's been around longer than that in different countries. So
Yeah, and it already has at least 25 years of history here, and I think personally, I mean, we never see any problem with this,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I think it's gonna last a very long time, probably a good 50 to 70 years.
yeah,
It can freeze, you can freeze it. It doesn't have any problem like copper or anything like this. Great
yeah,
material. It bends. You don't have to have any corners everywhere.
yeah.
Just a gold material out there. Does anybody have any questions for Preston about anything here?
Well, of course I do.
Thank you, Sandy.
Well, because as a realtor, I come across Poly B a lot. And I've never been able to get from any plumbing company that I've talked to, just a ballpark. What is it going to cost these people to get this removed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you answer that? I mean, I know you don't do it, but you have done it in the past. Can you give me a ballpark of what I can tell people? Like, you know what, you are looking at, if you buy this house, another 30 grand or another 50 grand, or, depending on square footage, obviously. And if it's a 2-level or a bungalow like mine, I have copper piping in my house. So this is not making me happy, you guys, knowing that I have to replace mine.
Yeah, so I can give you I mean, obviously there's, again, variables that have to be included, but I can give you a simple kind of, I'm in a plumbing association and I talk with a lot of other plumbers, and a lot of guys seem to have a very standard way of quoting these types of jobs, and they do it per fixture. So everyone's going to have a different price per fixture, but that's typically how a plumber will quote on these jobs, unless there's something weird going on where they need to add something additional because of a weird scenario. But most of the time they will price it based per fixture, which means a fixture is basically anything that produces water. So toilet, sink, fridge line, kitchen sink, hose bib, anything that produces water is a fixture. So if you just add up all your fixtures in your house, and from what I've seen, just what other plumbers are posting, reputable plumbers, I mean, there's always going to be cheaper guys that will do something for a better price, but whether you get a good service out of that is a different story. But reputable plumbers that I know seem to be pricing in that $650, $750 range per fixture. So if you take a house with 10 fixtures, multiply it by $650, that'll give you a rough idea what the plumbing will cost you. But then you have to look at the repairs, which is going to be drywall. And the drywall is going to depend. It's going to depend on how spaced out the house is. Some houses are very spaced out, which is going to require more cutting of drywall. Some houses have crawl spaces, which you can do a lot of the plumbing in the crawl space, so you don't have to cut very much drywall. So there's a lot of variables there. But if just on the plumbing side, it's you could probably do like a multiplication of how many fixtures there are, anywhere between 550 to 750 per fixture, and that would give you a rough idea on the plumbing side.
Now, Preston, this would not include drywall repairs, taping, and repainting in most cases, right?
That's going to be mostly for the plumber to come in, cut the drywall, run the pipes, redo all the plumbing. And that normally includes the water lines, the shutoff valves, the supply lines, the hose bibs, the laundry box. That's like a full redo.
So wouldn't you say that you would, because in most cases, if you're cutting a patch and you're patching it, you don't just paint that patch. You got to repaint the wall or the ceiling or all that. Wouldn't you say that it would still add another, probably in many cases, another $5,000 just in drywall repairs and painting and all that, or even more?
Yeah.
Don't you almost double the price just?
Yeah, it's a safe bet to double it. Like if the repipe's going to be 10,000, normally the drywall is probably going to be within that range. Normally, from what I've seen, because I work with a drywaller, he was a little bit of a bigger company, so he had more overhead and probably charged a little bit more. But he was almost kind of just behind me every quote.
Hmm,
So
so good to hear. Good to
yeah.
know.
But there's guys,
Yeah.
you might find a solo guy. You might find a solo guy that just does it by himself, doesn't have a bunch of overhead and labor and stuff, and you might get a really good deal. But that's obviously something you got to search for.
Just for a rough idea, right? So if a small place has one bathroom and one kitchen, so we got a sink, a toilet, and a shower, that's three fixture, and then you'll have another sink in the kitchen, so that's four, right? Time, let's say 800, about $3,000 plus the drywall and all that, maybe another $3,000. So maybe about $7,000 for the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just add them up. Yeah, multiply. That's what
That's a
every.
great formula right there.
Yeah.
That's really good information.
Uh,
Now, Edward's got a question here about fire sprinklers. I know maybe you guys don't deal with them, but
Yeah.
he says that they're having issues in his townhouse where the outside sprinklers froze and broke and created floods. I mean, to me, anything that has a chance to freeze, normally it should be a dry line, basically just filled up with air, ready to go if something happens. Do you know a little bit about sprinklers as well, Preston?
So, yeah, I mean, sprinkler systems are actually a separate trade. Yeah, I've never actually worked on a sprinkler system or done anything with sprinkler systems, so I don't want to comment too much on that area. I do know a guy in our plumbing association that focuses on them. So if you do need help with that, I can definitely refer, but I don't want to speak outside of something that I generally have not worked on or done.
Yeah.
I could
As if
answer
it could
on
be a
that.
problem. Normally they'll put, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So if the sprinkler is coming outside, I don't know if your townhome is new or old, but usually basically even sprinklers or say if like the P-traps for plumbing are on the outside. Usually what we'll do is you should put heat trace, and heat trace is the electrical cabling that essentially when it hits a certain degree, temperature degree, then the cable will then heat up to then keep, obviously to stop it from freezing. But I'd be curious to see about your town, just because I heard about this situation before recently about the townhomes. Is they had some exterior water lines exposed on the outside, not exposed to the outside, but I guess they were in soffits, and then obviously that was on the outside, and then they froze and they exploded. Heat trace is one way to do it. The insulation boots are another way, but yeah, it just kind of depends on how far and how, I guess, it was engineered, if it's a row of townhomes and whatnot.
Yeah, they should definitely have warranties when they install that, because the only reason that it burst, it's because it wasn't set up properly. I mean, obviously, and why would you have sprinklers on the outside anyways? It doesn't seem like the idea is overly smart to start with. But anyways, normally when they run in parking lots, they're empty. There's no water in these lines because they'll burst in the winter, right? So, but sprinklers, we hear it all the time. They're trouble. To me, like I would get rid of all this stuff. This has never saved a life. It has only destroyed buildings out there. All right. So if that's it for the questions, we'll ask more questions at the end. But let's jump right now, right here with Marcelo. A lot of you guys were not here. He introduced himself a little bit at the beginning. He used to run a different electrical company that got bought out, and now he's rebranding. And so, how about you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Marcelo?
Okay, so I've been in business for probably around just over 8 years. Originally, I started Vandy Electrical, and then I grew that business. We did residential, commercial, industrial, pretty much covered all grounds of electrical. That company was then bought out by one of my clients, and then I partnered up with them. I grew that business, to a decent amount, and then I wanted to follow my passion as a home builder, as I was a home builder kind of part-time as I was running an electrical company, and my dad was a builder before. So now we do home building, renovations. We still do electrical work for service, small jobs here and there, but basically all electrical grounds and new development, renovations, and any electrical upgrades.
Something a little bit different about Marcelo is that he's a master electrician. How do you become a master electrician?
To become a master electrician, it's basically you do your red seal. You have to do what's called a field safety representative, and that's an additional course to become it. And there's 3 levels of it. Level A is extra high voltage, which is pretty much nothing to do with your houses. It's BC Hydro's high line, so I think it's 12 or 750 volts and above is the A ticket. And to be an A ticket, you have to have worked on a numerous amount of electrical bolts. So this is more so for like high-rise apartment buildings, any industrial plants, and stuff like that, not really to do with your home. B ticket is 750 volts and lower, so that would be essentially your home. And then C ticket would be extra low voltage, which would be like your internet and stuff like that.
And I think you're able to inspect other electricians' work with that, no?
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay. Okay. Well, here, this next slide here really just shows in your home the type of things that the electricians can work on. They can upgrade your panels. If your bathroom fan dies off, or it's too slow, or it's not working, or it's super noisy, they can replace the motor on that. They can redo most of the electrical, light fixtures, baseboard heaters, and a million of other things. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the items that we find on older homes in a pre-50s. You may get some nub and tube. It's a non-grounded system. Whenever we find it, it's always recommended to have that replaced. There will be an insurance issue. It's also a fire hazard. Do you see? I mean, you've seen your fair share of nub and tube out there. Do you have any stories about them? Anything that you saw that either melted or anything of any interest?
Yeah, the knob and tube is pretty scary. Because the thing about knob and tube is sometimes you could have arcing in because if you see in that picture there's 2 wires and they go to like a black tape, where it looks like the 2 wires are taped up. Essentially, what that is that wire that's going right is crimped or not crimped, it's soldered onto the other wire. So what happens over time, and especially depending on the area of where that is, with heat and whatnot, and whatever's plugged into that circuit that's drawing a lot of power, the connection will sometimes go loose. And I've actually opened up ceilings before, and you can actually see like black around the joists. So that just means that over
It's been
time,
sparking.
it's been sparking, it's been arcing, and it's essentially it's a fire hazard. And because it's ungrounded, it has nowhere to short out to. So it's not going to short to ground, because that's usually how a normal house would work. It would short to ground first. So there's nothing really protecting you from that fire happening whenever you're sleeping, whatever, you're not home. And that's why insurance companies, they either don't insure it, or you're going to pay an extreme premium, or sometimes they'll say to GFCI all the plugs. That is kind of like the way I see it. That's like the cheapest alternative to do. Most of the time I say
It's still a fire hazard.
It's still a fire hazard. It's kind of like poly B, for example. When people say, "Oh, how much does it cost to get rid of knob and tube?" And it's basically the next question I ask them is, "Are you looking to do a home renovation?" Because the amount of drywall removal, and most of the time, if you see knob and tube, it's going to be lath and plaster. So trying to match that lath and plaster with regular drywall and stuff like that is a lot of work.
And you have the asbestos in there too.
There's the asbestos in there as well. So it's usually a big job to remove the knob and tube. I've done it on a few jobs, and it gets messy.
So I'm guessing it's the best time to open up the walls and replace your plumbing at the same time and redo the insulation, and it's a gutting job.
Exactly, because most of the time in those houses the insulation is next to nothing.
Yeah, no, it's nub and tube. If you see it, it's up for replacement. Now, aluminum wiring, not the end of the world out there. Really popular between roughly 67 to 74. So you're not going to see that very often, but it is also an insurance issue. When you use it, it expands. It retracts, and eventually it gets loose. And if it gets loose, it can start arcing. And as you can see in the picture here, have you ever found any melted anything?
Yeah, so aluminum wiring, it's not recommended. People don't use aluminum wire for, say, your plugs and whatnot. They'll use it for your range sometimes when it's a bigger conductor, but you got to use the proper penetrox and whatnot to terminate it, which is like the goop that you put on the wire before you terminate it, because your main service is aluminum as well, but you have to torque it to a certain spec. You have to use the proper penetrox, and that's pretty much the way it gets terminated. But you won't see it nowadays on your plugs and whatnot. And if you do, then you have to do the proper method, which is you have to buy specific morettes, which is the wire nuts, and you have to use the penetrox, and then you got to do copper pigtails, because insurance will also
And
ask you.
we do have a video on our YouTube channel on how this is done if you're curious about it. But one thing we need to touch on doing on aluminum wiring is that it's only the single strand aluminum wiring that is a problem. When it's 3, 4 of those that is twisted together, it's a multi-strand, and it's basically still in use today for anything like a 30 amp or a 40 amp type breaker. It's the single strand that is an insurance issue, because you'll see the multi-strand still installed on new construction nowadays. Um, and now everybody's questions all about the car chargers. I mean, this is the biggest topic out there. Everybody's buying something, they want to get a car charger. So, do you find that panels, what do you feel like panels normally they can handle it, or?
The first question I usually ask, because I get messages all the time about EV chargers, and I say, can you send me a picture of your main panel? The main panel where I can see the breakers and what the amperage is on each breaker and what the house is being used for. Because most of the time, if you're buying an older home, and say it's 100 amps and you have a suite in the basement, and you have electric ranges, and you have 2 electric dryers, and now you want a heat pump outside as well, most of the time it's not going to be enough for an EV charger. Because EV chargers, as I was saying before, they take 100% of the load. So if you have a 30 amp charger and you have a 100 amp panel, 30 amps of that charger is dedicated to 30 amps is dedicated to the charger. So then you would essentially have a 70 amp panel, which most of the time, once we do the calculation, is you're at the threshold of, overdoing your panel. And most of the time as well, in older homes, you'll get older panels, older styles, which, Federal Pioneer, which are, hazards as well. So there's other ways around it with like the electric vehicle charging systems, which will swap over, say, your dryer to your electric vehicle, one or the other, whichever one you're using, it'll transfer over. Or they'll have like management systems where it'll only draw what the management system is set to. That's another way to do it, because service upgrades can be expensive, depending if you're fed from underground or you're fed from overhead, and depending on the size of the house. Lots of variables involved in it, but
So
most of the time we
go
can
ahead,
make it
sorry.
work.
So I would have to say that out there right now, probably 90% of houses they're on the 100 amp panel. That seems to be the most common size. On new homes, they'll even throw a 200, which is awesome. But most homes out there, it's on a 100. Now, I find that most of them at one point, they wanted to throw a suite in there to try to help a mortgage helper, an extra set of laundry, an extra kitchen. These 100 amp panels nowadays, they're not quite enough for what people are using. What do you think about that?
No, they're not enough, because nowadays everything's going towards more electric, and everything draws more power nowadays. The consumption's a lot higher. So most of the time, 100 amps is never really enough. When it comes to the homes and whatnot, I usually always suggest to upgrade to 200 amp, but just for resale value is also good. Because, it's always a question for homeowners, is my electrical panel safe, or do I have enough power? Or, a lot of the times in these older homes, back in the day, they didn't have so much stuff and so many circuits, or the previous owners putting more circuits in there, and the panel most of the time cannot even, you can't even fit another breaker in there. So
That's right.
sometimes
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to do it.
Now, about the car charger, before we move on this, what's the cost roughly, like just on the average cost? Let's say someone's got 100 amp and it's still okay. They don't need to upgrade anything. They just need to install a car charger. What's the regular cost on that, the average cost?
So it's usually, I would say, not including the charger. I always range it from anywhere from say 600 to 1500, and it always depends on where your panel is, and where you want to install the charger. Right.
So
If
we're
your
hoping
panel's
that the
in,
panel's in the garage.
if your panel's in the garage, then usually sometimes if it could be, say $500. Once we come there, install the breaker, the cabling, and whatnot. Most of the cost is in the cabling.
Mm. Okay, so what's the rough cost for the charger itself? I guess Tesla's got their own price, I guess, and
Yeah, so Teslas, they have the mobile charger and then they have like the wall unit charger. I don't know off the top of my head, but usually I suggest the mobile charger because that one would then just plug into like a dryer receptacle. It makes our job easier, more efficient, and faster, which obviously brings down the cost. And then this way you could, you could even, if you're going away or whatnot, you could pack that charger up with you and go on your way. So those ones are, I think, just off the top of my head, and don't quote me on this, I think they go anywhere from like 400 to 600, maybe. The ones that are hardwired into your house, this would be like your charging station. I think, they can go up, let's say $1,000 or whatnot. I know they have it all displayed on their website. But for example, I have another brand which is called Wallbox. And mine's a 60 amp, but the wall box is good because you buy the wall box. Let's say you have you could set the amperage that it takes. So if you want to take 15, 30, 60, even 70, you can do it. You just adjust the toggle that it has. And that one I believe was $746.
so you would say that under $2,000 you're getting a car charger installed, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, earlier you mentioned that you always recommend upgrading to a 200 amp panel. If you have a 100, upgrading to a 200, I was told roughly between $5,000 to $10,000. What do you think? Does that make any sense
Yeah.
price wise?
That sounds pretty accurate because there's lots of variables involved. Most of the time I ask, for detailed photos or, where's the hydro line, what it looks like. Because if it's an older home, most of the time the service entrance is in your wall. So when it's in your wall, basically we can't use that mast anymore. Now by code, you have to have the service mast on the exterior of the house. Reason being is they found that back in the day, I guess people were cutting into those pipes and getting free power. So that's the reason for that. But also it comes with some more stuff. Sometimes we will have to cut drywall to get backing on the mast. And then another thing too is if it's coming from underground, if you don't have any power lines on your street, most of the time that means that it's fed underground. And I find that most of the time with the old houses is they do run the pipe up to the mast, but actually it's just like a underground rated cable that's just buried in the ground. So when it comes to that, then it can get more expensive, say 10,000, maybe 12,000.
So it's not in a conduit. It's really just laid down there.
Yeah, like it'll be sleeved in a conduit from the concrete. Say if you have a sidewalk on the side of your house, it'll be concrete. It'll be conduit from the sidewalk up to your meter. But most of the time, it's underground rated cable, and then we have to run a pipe from there, from your meter to wherever the hydro splice box is.
So every time we're talking about any kind of electrical work out there, it would be recommended to get a permit for that, right?
You would have to get a permit for that.
How about to install a car charger?
Okay, so here's the thing is with the car chargers, like I have to always recommend that you install a permit. That you apply for a permit. And a lot of the rebates that you'll get from, say, the government and whatnot, they require permits for you to get that rebate. So you would have to get a permit.
Isn't that another $1,000 just for that?
It depends on the municipality. I've seen permits go from say like 180 upwards of 600. But those are costs that have to be carried. But the bonus part about it is depending on what rebate is out there. I find that most of the time for car chargers, the rebate will cover majority of the cost.
Oh, very well. And are you able to, are you the one who's applying for this for the clients, or you give them the information, they pay you, and then they ask for a rebate?
There is two ways to do it. Like I can apply for it, or the client can apply for it. I always recommend the client to apply for it because they have all their BC Hydro information and whatnot. Because we have to link it to that account. So basically, I come in first. I always say is look at what the available rebates are, because you know they change every I think 6 months or 3 months. And then basically we'll agree to the work, we'll get the permit and whatnot. I'll supply you with the permit number because the rebate will ask you for the permit number and obviously my own company information. And then you submit it. And then usually it takes about, I want to say 3 months or less than 3 months. And then they'll issue the money. Usually it'll go on your hydro bill.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, Richard's got a question here. How about, and I'm guessing this is really all strata dependent, but if I'm in a strata here, a wood frame building, 3 floors, and I want to have a car charger in my parkade, what's involved with this?
So it depends how old the building is. And because some newer buildings, they actually allow for a certain amount of amperage to each car stall. But it also depends, you know, how strict your strata is. Because I've come into situations where some stratas will say, yeah, go ahead or whatnot. But basically, what we have to do is you have to actually monitor your main distribution. And for that, we have like electrical equipment to monitor the main distribution of the building, because most of the time it's not obviously coming off your panel from your suite. Because obviously, if you're living on the 30th floor and you're in the P2 parkade, we're not going to run a wire. So it's going to come off the nearest electrical panel in that parkade. And we have to then monitor it, see if there's room for it. And then we have to bring a cable from that electrical room, if there's available power, bring it to a meter so that either hydro can bill you, or either there's other metering companies, because it depends. Some stratas want to see like a meter involved where they could then bill you for the power that you're using. But usually I find with stratas, it always gets sticky, right? Because most of the time you're dealing with people that, you know, don't understand the construction or what's involved. And then once you put it in, everybody else wants it in, and then there's not enough power. Most of the time they'll say no. So that's
So
what
the
I
older
say.
the building, the smaller the chance.
Yeah, like I always say bring it to strata council, basically to see if everyone in the building is open to it. Because then what we do is we'll do the same thing. We'll monitor your the main distribution that's coming into that building, see what's allowable for power to be distributed. And then this way, everyone can know in that building if they were to get EV chargers, they were allowed to get a 20 amp, 240 volt plug, which then would allow you to charge your car.
I see a lot of time now, instead of giving it to everybody, they just install 2 of them in the visitor parking, and people just use it there, right? And I guess pay a monthly fee, or sometimes it seems like there's like Flow, or maybe these type of companies can go there and install it and bill for it, right? But that's a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
question, and everybody's always asking, and the Strata is always, we're discussing it, and it's like nothing's moving forward, and eventually it's going to be all electric cars out there, right? So does
Yeah,
anybody
no.
have any other? Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Nowadays with new buildings, most of the time, basically, like I just did a building, say a year and a half ago, and every stall was fitted for a 20 amp car charger. And nowadays, the newer buildings, they're all fitting them out for it. So there's dedicated electric vehicle panels in the parkade that are for electric vehicles for each owner. But it's at the owner's expense to get the car charger itself.
It's already, most of it's already done though. So, right, Word? Like,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's cool. That's why the newer building is nice, but on older building, it's gonna be tough to get that
tough.
going. Does anybody have any questions for Marcello here? Electrical, anything? 'Cause then we can jump in our, last questions.
Yeah, I have
if anybody
one
has any-
comment.
Of course.
It's kind of a roofing related comment. It's do you ever get clients asking for solar upgrades, roofing to panels?
I've
No,
never,
I've had very few people inquire about solar, but I haven't done many installs on solar. It's not actually asked about very often. I know solar is actually, it's come down a lot in price for the solar panels and whatnot. The thing that's the main cost is like, if you're gonna store it into like a battery bank or you're gonna send it back to hydro.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't had many people inquire about it.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed with the roofing company too, is, I mean, it's out there, the technology's out there, but is it gaining popularity in Vancouver? I still have yet to see that.
Now, let's say, Matt, for example, a roof, it's an asphalt shingle roof and it's 18 years old. Still not that bad, probably have another 5 years to go, but they want to have solar panel. Wouldn't you recommend replacing the roof at the same time?
I would, yeah. At the
Okay.
18-year mark, you might have 5 years left. If you were to put all those panels on the roof and then 5 years later have to remove them and put them back on, I think it would be not the greatest. So I would just replace the roof and put the solar panels on at the same time.
Because I find that a lot of moss grows on their dam, like a lot of debris gets stuck there. I'm thinking this is a pretty at-risk kind of area for leakage, and there's also all the fastening to the roof that's happening with those panels, right? So I
Yeah.
would want to installed on a brand new roof if possible.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good question for sure.
Well, if anybody has any questions, just shoot them. Otherwise, we're just going to conclude this. Um, Thank you so much, everybody, for showing up. If you have any questions, we will make the recording of this available for later. Yes, I will. I will. I will. So, and if you don't hear from me, just reach out and then I'll give you a link. Absolutely. Now, we will be doing more of those. So if you could follow us on our Eventbrite, that's often where we'll be adding those. But talking to Keith today, I think I'll be throwing more on our website instead of using Eventbrite there because it seems to be a bit of a pain. Some people needed a code and all that. But thank you so much. Keep in mind, everybody, we want to be your personal consultant out there. So if you have any questions, here is all our Instagram for Marcello, Preston, and Matt, and ourselves. Follow us on Instagram. If you have any questions, we're all very happy to help in any possible way. We personally want to be your personal consultant out there. Your clients ask you something weird, you don't know what to say, say, hey, I'll call my roofer, I'll call my drainage guys, I'll get right back to you. I got my electrician here, I just send him a text. And I do it all the time. As home inspectors, we come across stuff all the time. They're like, shit, what is this? And then I text them all the time and I get instant reply. I just love it. Thank you so much, guys, for that. This is amazing for us.